Today, we are going to run through arguably one of the most important skills when working in tech, and that is problem solving. Here's the problem we're trying to solve. With so many companies doing return to office mandates, I thought it would be helpful for my audience if one of the next videos I made was how to get a push notification directly onto your mobile phone if there are delays on your train line. So let's write that down. As a tech worker, I want a mobile notification when there are delays so that I don't waste my time going all the way to the train station only having to come straight back home. Now that we've got our problem clearly defined, we can start jumping into solution mode. If you're like, I don't even know where to start, good, because we're going to break it down. And I do have to stress, the more you do this, the more it gets easier. If we want a push notification when there are train delays, let's break it down. Probably the first thing we would have to solve is some form of trigger mechanism. Given the entire purpose of this is to avoid wasting our time first thing in the morning, we probably want to execute this before we leave our house. After we've got our trigger, probably the next thing we would have to do is somehow get the train data. We can't have any logic or send a notification if we don't actually know which trains are delayed. So I think the next logical step is how do we get the train data? Now, once we've got that data, we probably want to do a little bit of logic. We don't know what it'll look like. We don't know its format. We don't know if we have to filter. So we're just going to keep step 3 as logic. And then I think the final step should be is the mobile notification. Now that we've broken it down into our 4 steps, let's start at the beginning with the trigger. There are so many different ways we can schedule things to run. We can do it in the cloud or locally, and even then there's 101 different ways to do it. Given we're solving for my audience, and I've already made videos on Home Assistant, it probably makes sense to keep the trigger mechanism within there. This is where prior knowledge comes in handy because you get to apply it to current and future problems. I'm going to assume you all watch all of my videos and so you're keenly aware of Home Assistant, but if you don't and you aren't aware of it, a good starting point is Google searches and AI tools like ChatGPT. I really like these because you can ask them a question and they will get you about 70 to 80% of the way there. It's not perfect, chances are this output will be wrong in sections, but it points you in the right direction. We've effectively solved the trigger portion. We know we can trigger this using Home Assistant automations, which lets you trigger based on any day of the week and the time. So we can say at 7 a.m. trigger whatever we build. Next is the data. How do we actually get our train data to know there are delays? Again, Google is your friend. Generally, when you want to get data, you have 2 ways: getting it from an API or web scraping. My preferred method is using APIs if they are available. This part will vary based on where you live, but the concept is going to be the same. Because I'm in Melbourne, Australia, I'm just going to search for my location and I'm going to click on the first couple of links. This one wasn't very good. Second one wasn't exactly what I'm after either. So given I know we want to see if there's an API, we're just going to search for API. And it looks like there is an API that I can interact with to get what I want. There's a disruptions endpoint that looks like this. We can actually execute the disruptions endpoint by clicking this button and it gives us some output. Now it's very long, so what I'm going to do is copy and paste this into VS Code. And we can see it is 7,000 lines long. Now we probably don't need every single disruption. Thankfully, we see that there's another endpoint where we can give the route ID and it should just return only the train line that we care about. The only issue is now we've run into another problem. We don't know what our route ID is, and we also don't know how to get it. I wonder if I search for my train line, will it have it in some form of output? And we can see, okay, we've got the route name with the route ID here. So if I have a look at this route ID endpoint and I put in number 7, try it out. Now we only get 500 lines and it only shows us the disruptions that we care about. That's good. I'm happy we've now ticked off data. The next step is logic. Putting that into VS Code, we can see there are 249 lines of output. Given there's 249 lines of output, we probably want to apply some logic. We don't care about 99% of these fields. If we have a look at the structure of the data, we can see this looks like an array. And within here, there seems to be multiple items. And within the items, it seems like maybe the two fields that we care about are the title and the description. So we probably want to only just pull out those two fields. Now, I'm a bit too lazy, or I may just not know how to program that well. So I'm going to enlist AI to help solve part of this problem. We're going to say, I want you to write a Python script which prints only the title and description from this output. And we're going to give it the JSON output we got from the API, hit enter, and see what it comes back with. I gave it a very bad prompt and it wasn't that usable. That was on me, so we're going to improve it. We're going to go back a step and ask it to make the API call. Now I've asked it to make the actual API call and then extract only the title and description out. So we're going to see if this works. We're going to copy and paste that into VS Code. Now I gave it test.com URL because I didn't want to give it the full one which has my specific signature in it. So I'm just going to replace that there. And we're going to run it. We're going to do python test.py. And there you go. We have the output and logic that we want with all of the disruptions on that train line. That's looking pretty good. I'm happy to tick off the logic part of this problem. Now, in practice and for the actual video I'm going to make in future on how to do this step by step, I will obviously update that logic to filter out car park disruptions because I only care about the trains. And we could potentially add in a couple of extra features like checking Google Maps to see if there's an exceptionally long travel time from your house to the train station. But for the purposes of this, I would say we've solved it. Now, the final step is a push notification to your phone. Again, we have solved this in a previous video. We know that we can do this in Home Assistant. Given we're using that product to trigger the notification, it probably makes sense to just keep it within the same ecosystem. But again, if you didn't know that, Google and AI are your friend. I asked it how I can send a push notification to my mobile phone, and straight away, the very first answer it gave was exactly the solution I provided to you guys. I'm happy with that. I think we can tick off the notification aspect. So now we've conceptually solved the problem. We know how we're going to trigger it with Home Assistant automations. We know how we're going to source that data using an API request directly from the public transport website. We know how we're going to apply the logic with a custom Python script to only filter for the disruption data that we care about. And we know how to tie it all together using Home Assistant mobile push notifications. We combined our prior knowledge, we did Google searches, we asked AI to help at least push us in the right direction. So that's how I generally approach problem solving. I hope you guys enjoyed this and found this useful. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.